Welcome to Monday Mornings with Michelle, the new business podcast. Whether you're kicking off your day or kickstarting your business, Michelle is going to kick your ass into next week with the essential fours: strategy, systems, support, and state of mind. Now, welcome to center stage, Michelle Nedelec.
Hey there, peeps. This is Michelle Nedelec, and I'm super glad that you're here with us today. I'm here with my amazing guest, Heather Pearce Campbell, and she is the most adorable and sweet lawyer you will ever find on the entire planet. So thank you very much, Heather, for coming and being here with us today. She is also a tiger in the law field, so you're going to find out every reason why you're going to want to work with Heather. So awesome. Welcome.
Thank you, Michelle. So good to be here. I'm laughing because people are like, adorable and lawyer. That doesn't go together well for me. I'm joking. Like, that's not usually what people want.
It should be what people want. Let me tell you, if I had a couple of lawyers that were actually fun and entertaining to deal with and competent and capable like you are, trust me, my past
make it a little easier.
Oh, yeah. And, you can be fierce and, all that lawyer stuff with the other side, just not with my side. Right.
I get it. Totally get it.
Awesome. So give us a 5,000-foot view of who you are and how you got to be doing what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm based in Seattle. I've been practicing law here for 18 years now. About 5 years ago, so a ways into my journey, I just realized, and I'd been largely serving people in business and in real estate, but I realized there was a whole segment of the traditional, of the small business marketplace that was not served by traditional law. And so our legal system, and I've been, I would say, a bit of a creative person within the legal system. Anyways, like I've never been a super traditional fit. There's a lot I love about it, and there's a lot that does not serve the marketplace well. So about 5 years ago, I set out to really create a way to serve the people that I wanted to work with and was already working with, but in a way that was entirely different than the traditional legal model setup. And so that's where I created my second business, the Legal Website Warrior, which is really like an online information and education business designed to really meet a specific need in the marketplace.
Awesome. And what would that marketplace be?
Yes. So what I call the online information entrepreneurs, and these are usually coaches, consultants, speakers, authors, online educators, and experts. They're folks, and they can be other things, but really similarly aligned to that. Their business models largely do the same things, right? So their whole online platform, the way that they design their services, everything is really based around delivering information, usually their own body of work, in a variety of ways. And so they really have to learn how to think about their business from the standpoint of being an information publisher, usually a service provider. They're putting their information, their intellectual property, and their services out into the world in really similar ways across all of those businesses, but they just need to understand what it takes to protect all of the various components that they're doing.
Awesome. And I loved having this conversation with you because once upon a time, I thought it was just the intellectual property side, or what I'm going to call IP for the rest of this conversation. It just takes too long saying.
Right.
But it was like, I put my stuff out there and somebody's going to rip it off. Somebody's going to copy it. Somebody's going to do whatever. And then I finally kind of got over it and went, okay, that's going to happen. But when we were talking, it's so much more than that. It's the binding contracts and what you're obligated to, what you're not obligated to, what people know they're getting into and what they don't. For those of you who don't know that are listening on this, I'm very Canadian, and my business up until I met Heather was a handshake and a nod and we're doing business, right? Okay, great. So we would take credit card information. We'd have year-long contracts. People are paying us $10,000, $40,000, $100,000 a year without any contracts in place. So I know that's a substantially different way of doing business in the States. And it's not so much that I don't trust people anymore, but there's so much more to it. So give us an idea of kind of what is it, the difference between doing business online versus say, a retail outlet that every transaction is kind of in person and
That's a great question. So, I mean, one, I want to point out that people can do business like that, right? Business on a handshake. Like, I'm not a big sky is falling person. And like, that would probably be my personal preference most of the time, right? And so I start with that because a lot of people get really fearful about like, what? I have to do all of this at once, or it feels really hard and scary to suddenly be putting all of this support in place. But really, there's a couple ways that I approach it. And one is usually I recommend people start with protecting what I call protecting your moneymaker. Wherever you're making the most money, start there. The thing about the online world and the question that you asked, like, what's the difference between being online and, running cards as a merchant, like in person? It's a big difference. Like you and I sitting across from each other, like looking each other in the face and having, a transaction get processed there on the spot, there's a lot less likelihood that there's going to be a refund, that the customer is going to try to cause you some problems in your business or wiggle out of it, largely because there's often somewhat of a relationship there, even if it's a short-term, in-person relationship. But online, it's really interesting how when you remove that in-person interaction, which doesn't always happen in line. I know plenty of people, including yourself, that are still building relationships online and people know you, but particularly in those instances where you're not, or people have an online sales funnel and they can just check out and buy a digital course or buy something without really having any human interaction, there is a lot more risk. The percentage of a chargeback request or of somebody seeking a refund is much, much higher. And particularly once you go international, it gets even higher, right? So the risk is there, and it's just, there's that one step of like personal relationship removal, and people tend to get funny about finances sometimes and, decide to do something that they wouldn't do if they had had an in-person relationship or interaction with you.
Right. Well, and I know that there's a huge cultural difference as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've noticed it even in, as weird as it sounds, doing business in the Commonwealth. So if I'm doing business in the UK or Australia or South America, New Zealand, there's still a lot of cultural differences. You get outside of that, it's like, oh my God, who knew? And it's not that people are being rude or obnoxious or whatever. It's just a different way of doing business and the way that they think of that transaction that happens, and especially the difference between in-person versus digital.
That's right. And I mean, and the other thing that happens that is really just a byproduct of the amount of business that we do online is that people forget. They run something on their card, and like if you've ever seen a merchant account come up like in your credit card statement where you can't connect the dots, you're like, wait, who is this? What did I buy? What is that? I totally didn't do this charge, and you're calling your credit card company, and then you actually learn what it is. So there's plenty of that happens where people just do a high volume of business or online shopping or whatever, and sometimes they just don't know what it is that they're looking at when it comes to reviewing a credit card statement, or their spouse doesn't, or you know what I mean? And so a chargeback request can be initiated in that way as well. But there's a variety of reasons why online stuff is typically way more problematic than in-person business.
Absolutely. And from knowing full well that our audience here is all business people, you'll kind of fully appreciate this. It wouldn't be a normal conversation I'd have with people. But when we're setting up companies digitally, they will often go, we need, like, if we're going to take transactions and make purchases online, we need to have your business number. We need to have your banking information. We need to have, like, what's your legal business name, yada, blah. And when it shows up as company ABC 123, it's like, and then you're operating under a different operating handle, and the client's going like, what is that? Who is doing things? And especially as a Canadian corporation, if they're doing service in the States and they show up as 123, but they're operating as a named company, and then all of a sudden they get their bill and it's like something in Canada, like, what?
Yes.
Super important while setting it up to make sure that there's that clarity. I've even had people that say they've changed their name on their merchant account to have their website or something, so that when people look it up, they go, oh yeah, right, okay, I remember.
That's right. That's totally right. And it's what I regularly recommend is that people go examine that, whenever you're setting up your payment processing system, you go examine exactly what's in that. And it's not a lot of space. So you kind of have to be careful with what you put in there so that it's recognizable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that one thing can cause people a lot of troubles.
Well, what's one of the things that people are most kind of gobsmacked by and going, oh my God, I never knew?
Oh, goodness, where to begin? There's a lot, honestly. You know, one of the funny things that I've heard a lot of recently is when I teach about what you need to be online. So for example, if you're a really legitimate business and there's 3 core functions that you're doing online. You're publishing information, right? You're sharing information, or tips, articles, blogs, videos. It really can be in any format. Sharing information in a variety of ways. As essentially an online publisher, you need website terms and conditions, right? To do that function, because you're protecting yourself from the liability that comes along with giving information or advice that people could rely on. And then if you're collecting information, right, you should have a privacy policy. Absolutely, right now in current conditions, and depending on where your business operates and where your people are opting in from, you really shouldn't be doing anything online without a privacy policy. And then the final thing is terms of purchase for anything that you're selling. So those are terms that are specific to the sale, whether it's online, digital downloads, courses, etc., or something delivered live. But what I see is people trying to wiggle out of like, oh, well, I'm not really doing those things. I just have a 1-page, landing page. Like I don't really have a website that does all that fancy stuff. I just do this really simple thing, right? But you look at any 1-page landing page and you're like, you're sharing a lot of information. You're collecting, right? Like it's doing all of the same functions generally, like all of those, right? Collecting information, selling, like it does. It's the same. It's a 1-page website. And so what people don't understand is that they need the same level of protection really regardless of the size of their online real estate. So that can be kind of a surprise for a lot of people when they tend to want to like minimize what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and one of the biggest kind of shockers I saw was people don't realize that when they're doing affiliate marketing that somebody is essentially trusting you, but then they're going to a third-party place and giving them their information, and they don't know that they're giving a third-party place their information. It's like, okay, you're an affiliate marketer, dude. Like that's what you do. So you shouldn't be telling your audience that, hey, we're suggesting that this product or service or whatever is great, and we're going to be sending you or redirecting you to somebody else's page.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The affiliate world, and there's a kind of a variety of ways that people work in that world. Usually it's what you're saying, right? They're just sharing some information. They're providing their own link. It will redirect somebody, but more and more consumers are understanding what the affiliate relationship is, but they only understand that that's happening if somebody makes a proper disclosure. Like, hey, this is an affiliate link, right? I'm just sharing the information. It's, the company's being run by my friend Bob or whatever. But it's really important. The disclosure piece of it is really important. And then from the primary business perspective, if you are implementing an affiliate program, people are often shocked to learn that any mistakes that their affiliate makes in their marketing of their services, right, their own services or their products or whatever, they're liable for. So if somebody's out there running around on behalf of your business saying things that you can't say in the marketplace, violating, rules of the FTC or anything else, the truth in advertising language requirements, you're on the hook for it. And if one of your affiliates is snagging somebody else's web copy or images off the internet to help facilitate the sale of your stuff, which people are doing every day, you're on the hook for that, including potential copyright violations, like big time problems.
So give us an example of, if you can, go ahead and change names and whatever you need to do.
Names and identities.
Kind of a very general story of something that has happened that was like, wow.
So totally a couple of scenarios, and one ties right into what we're talking about with the affiliate stuff. I got contacted by a guy who was on the receiving end of a copyright infringement lawsuit, and what had happened is that one of his affiliates from around the world, who he did not even personally know, and this is one of the problems that people, one of the mistakes people make in their affiliate programs is they have just an open sign up page that they don't control, right? So they don't know who's actually signing up to become an affiliate. They have like an automated system that just allows anybody in without any vetting. This is what happened in that scenario. And so there was a woman on the other side of the world sending emails on behalf of his business, and she had taken a series of photographs off of like a health and wellness website, like from some other photographer that was not working for his company, and used those in a series of social media posts, email messages, right? And so the owner of those images found out and brought a lawsuit against him, right? The owner of the main business. And so, and he had the same reaction a lot of people have at first, which is like, well, I didn't know this was happening. I mean, I didn't give off authorization for this. Like, I didn't do it. And it was like, yes, but any affiliate out there running around doing any kind of advertising for your business, you're responsible for. So that was a big eye opener for him. There was another scenario where two business partners parted ways. And they forgot to basically take care of some of their online assets in the resolution of that, the dissolution of that partnership.
Right.
And they had an old program that still existed somewhere online that they had not assigned ownership of. And so what happened is that an affiliate who was running through ClickBank, right, the big Click, was continuing to share the link to their old program, and I think did it through LinkedIn, spammed a bunch of people through LinkedIn with their old program. Anyways, they ended up, so it was not only an affiliate problem, like an affiliate management problem, but then there were also violations of the CAN-SPAM Act, which is the US, federal law against spam. And so they ended up, both of them being dragged into, and they were no longer business partners, being dragged into a lawsuit to the tune of like hundreds of thousands of dollars, because one email sent in violation of the CAN-SPAM Act can subject you to a $16,000 penalty.
Ouch.
So you take some of those affiliates that have a whole campaign going, where it's 10 or 12 or 15 emails or messages to 20,000 people inside of LinkedIn at a time, like you're in big trouble in a hurry.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on in that second scenario, but people just don't think about some of that stuff until it's up in their face.
Right. Yeah, and I can believe that, because part of it is you think, oh, everybody does business the same way I do.
Right.
Like, no, they don't. And just because you don't know and somebody else is doing doesn't mean, ignorance of the law.
Well, that's right. And it's reflective. I mean, I kind of joke, even though it's not funny, the online world is truly the Wild West of business, and the pace of business that can happen in that space. It can move really fast, which is an advantage and also a detriment to people who don't pay attention to the rules.
Right. So what do you usually teach people when you're working with them? Because I know a lot of people think, oh, you're online legal, that's just templates and stuff like that, and that's totally not you at all. You are awesome and amazing. So tell them about your awesomeness.
Oh, thank you. That's kind of the hook. The online part is kind of the hook, right? So even my branding, the Legal Website Warrior, a lot of people end up finding me because they have concerns about the online portion of their business. They're just ready to launch a new website or a course, or they did do that and somebody's already ripped it off, or they're having some problems, right? So there's various ways that people find me, but the online portion is just, the online part is really just a portion of what I cover with entrepreneurs. So I have a framework where I teach people, a whole way, like a whole path. It's called my 5-bucket framework for business protection. And it's really a simplified framework to teach people like where to look for their legal protections in business. And the good part about that framework is it really applies to any business, no matter what you're doing, even if you're online or offline. You need to be thinking about protections from the same perspective. And so, we talk about business structures, big business entities, like have you set up your business the right way? Because, and I'm not sure in Canada, but in the US, like 60% of small businesses are sole proprietors. They don't even take the step of setting up a separate legal entity right, to operate their business from. And so there's a lot of risk if you stay in that place. So we cover everything from business entities and setting up a business structure, a formal business structure, to contracts, which is the second bucket, which is a really big bucket. That's where a lot of my online work protecting online businesses falls into, right? All these legal documents that help protect our online platforms. It's also how you protect some of your offline services, your primary client service agreements, your consulting or coaching contracts, your workshop releases, like whatever way you deliver your work. Maybe you're a speaker. You should have a standard speaking agreement in place. So that's a big bucket depending on what people are doing in their business, and when people hit the point of really growing their business, like through affiliate and JV relationships, through masterminds, through, all kinds of scenarios where they're working with people and they're hiring people to support the growth of their business, those agreements really, the importance of those is taken to a new level because you're really exposing a lot of your IP in the process of business growth. And then the third bucket, if we're just doing a quick overview, I educate people about business insurance, right? And then that's not fully legal, but I get so many questions about insurance that I've just incorporated it into part of the framework so that people understand where that fits. And like a lot of people think, oh, well, I have insurance, so I don't need this other stuff, right? Like they think it's replaceable, which is not how it works. So, I do some training around that. And then the final two buckets are having an intellectual property protection plan. So we talk separately about IP because most small businesses tremendously undervalue their own IP. They wait too long in the journey to address it, to learn what it is, to learn strategies for protecting it. They, often think that, the strategies that are available to big businesses are not available to them or are too cost prohibitive to pursue, right? So there's a lot of misinformation about IP, but I train people about strategies for that. I help them assess their existing IP as well as look at what IP is kind of coming down the works, what they're currently developing. And then the final bucket is about dispute resolution. It's about having a dispute resolution strategy in place. And that really just means a communication strategy, right? In business, as you know, there's a lot of moving parts. We have opportunities for misunderstandings and things to go wrong. And, if we don't have an approach about how to handle difficult conversations and tension in our business, things can go out of control quickly depending on who's on the other side. And, one of my primary goals is to keep small businesses out of litigation, right? I have a whole training around statistics and problems with litigation in the US, and I really want to keep businesses out of that tough spot.
Which is exactly what makes you totally different than any other lawyer I've ever met. All the rest of them going, yay, windfall. And you're like, no. So, yes and no. Like I know plenty of good attorneys who work really hard to keep their people out of trouble. And I know plenty that are totally willing to step in the middle of trouble and make lots of money helping their folks out, right? And my goal is that businesses stay in business. My goal is that, entrepreneurs and the people that I serve, which I just think are a phenomenal group of people, like I want them to do so well and to be more successful earlier in their journey so that they have stability, they have the structure and support that they need, and they stay out of some of the troubles that really have the potential to impact, if not shut down, their businesses. Nice. So peeps, if you're listening to this and you've listened to a couple of other shows, you know that these are the kind of people I bring onto the show, the ones that care more about your business than you do, and they know what you need to know. It's not, oh, well, ask me a few questions, I'll answer them. It's like, you should really be asking me this, that, and the other thing, because you need to know. So awesome. I love it. And I was thinking about it, makes me laugh. I remember once upon a time, way back when I would write papers and we had to reference every book we read that went into the book that was written, even if we had written or read the book like 5 years earlier, but it was like, oh yeah, well, this kind of pertains to what they were saying, even though it was totally changed, still had to reference it. I don't think I've seen anything with any references in it in the last 10 years.
Oh,
people still reference things.
You're talking about plagiarism? Yeah.
Well, just
kind of
in general, like when you create something, does anybody give credit to anybody else anymore? Is that still a thing? And do people go after you if
It is,
about their stuff.
yes, I know. It is still a thing, and it is a really important, I mean, and it's true. This is a super relevant topic in the age of everybody being online, right? Because, I mean, one of my jobs is to help my clients keep their information on their websites, right? And not have other people rip that off. And so there's services you can hire that, you know, scan the web and send you all kinds of reports if they see your content elsewhere. And it's interesting how, like, this topic, because it, you know, one of the things, so stepping back a little ways, one of the things that actually got me into law was my last year at Utah State University when I was studying business, and I had been in business and finance. I mean, economics. I added economics as a second major, but it just meant I was in a ton of business classes, like really long days, and I'd kind of had enough of business, but I knew I wanted more education. And so I took a business law class as part of my business curriculum. And then for my advanced writing course, I had to write a final paper, and I chose legal ethics.
Wow.
I know. It was really interesting, but that was kind of I think those two things together, I got enough exposure to the legal world that I was like, this makes sense. And that's actually how I decided to go to law school. But a lot of the issues that we face right now in online business would be totally gone if people really had a level of personal ethics that guided them to think about, like, something that they might just dismiss or not think, you know, for more than about 30 seconds about. If they actually paused and thought, like, where did this come from? Did I create it? Just like if you were sitting in school and, like, looking over at your buddy's paper and, like, you know, copying down word for word, right? We all knew, like, back in the day, that's not what you do. I mean, even my son, who's 7, who has special needs, like, we've gotten reports home when he's done that to his classmates, right? Because he's nervous, and usually it's because he wasn't paying attention in the class to what, you know.
No, because that never happened. We always paid attention.
We always paid attention, right? But he wasn't paying attention, so then he's freaking out, and he's like, I have to turn in something. So he's like, what's John doing or whatever, right? So, I mean, even then at age 7, like, he's getting reports home, like, you're not supposed to do that. So I have to believe that we know this as a society, and yet people in the online space just fascinate me with their willingness to just freely take other people's work. I mean, it happens.
It's the Wild West.
It is the Wild West, and it is just amazing the reasons and the excuses you get from people when, like, I've had to, you know, send out a gazillion cease and desist and takedowns and, like, hey, this looks like you took it from my client, please take it down, you know. And the reports that I get from the service are like, it's 97% the same, right? I can tell them exactly what the percentage match is on the language, you know.
20% change, people, 20% minimum.
Oh my gosh. So what you're talking about right here, this cracks me up. Because
what gets us in trouble. Don't listen to that shit.
No, the number of times, and actually it's been 10%, the number of times I've heard people say, like, oh, don't you just have to change 10% of the language? I'm like, no, I want to know where that came from and who first said it so I can wring their neck, because
just give credit where credit is due, people. It's not that hard.
Right. And let's be clear that giving credit in the context of business, of commercializing something, of creating a course or writing something that helps your business, giving credit is not enough. You have to have a license. You have to have actual written permission that you can reference, use, rely on in any way somebody else's work, right? You don't get to, because a lot of people think, like, oh, well, I duplicated this portion, but I did give credit, so I'm fine. No. That's not how it works either.
That's not how it works in English class either.
No.
You still had to put that shit in your own words afterwards. You
right.
Straight across, take it from them and call
That's
it
right.
yours. No.
Yeah, so there are still a lot of misunderstandings which continue to fascinate me when I come across them, which is often.
But we'll hunt down that person that said you only have to change 10%.
Right. If you find them, please send them to
Or
me.
10% or
Please.
whatever
Whatever it was wrong.
It's like every expression that, 80% of businesses, and everybody screwed that stat up too.
Yes, it's
then
true.
People just make shit up and go, is it really the same quote anymore? I don't know about that.
It's like the game of telephone. I know.
Awesome. So let me ask you this. So, well, first, how do people get a hold of you if they're going, oh my God, you're awesome, you're fantastic, I want to know more about these buckets, what's all going on with that? So let's
Yeah.
Give them what they're looking for.
Absolutely. So they can reach me just at my website. I've got a contact form there. If they can't remember anything else, just remember legalwebsitewarrior.com, just how it sounds. They can also email me, right? info@legalwebsitewarrior.com. I'm on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is a great way to connect with me.
Just
Facebook.
don't spam her.
Yeah, don't spam me, please. If I'm suddenly being enrolled in your newsletter, I will probably disconnect from you. I'll whatever it's called on LinkedIn, I'll unfriend you. Yeah. I am amazed how often that happens. Do you connect on LinkedIn?
I don't. I go in once a month. I add a bunch of connections in. I answer some questions, and then I ignore it completely. I'm a Facebook girl.
See, but Facebook, I'm still kind of like, what is this? How does it work? I know I'm on Facebook, but I don't utilize it well. LinkedIn, I'm on a lot more. It just tends to be like where a lot of my people are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they can find me on LinkedIn under my name, Heather Pearce Campbell, and Pearce is Pearce.
And Campbell is
just like the soup, Campbell. Yep. But you can find me on, on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn under my name.
Very cool. That is awesome. And I assume you have do you have opt-ins? Do you have a course? Do you have...
Oh, totally. Yes. No, if people wanted to walk through my 5-bucket framework, like in a short video series, if they go to Legal Website Warrior / Legal Basics Bootcamp, right? It's my little boot camp. It'll drop them into a course and they'll get a series. It's really designed to be consumed over like 5 days. You watch this 1 5-minute video, go do a thing, next day come back. So just runs them through basic training and then asking them kind of what they have in place and helps them, look at what they've already got and what what gaps they might have.
It is a fantastic program, people. So if you've heard it on podcast, if you're, depending on what channel you're listening to this on or you're seeing it, you may see the links below. If you don't see the links below and you would like to have them, just go to awarenessstrategies.com/blog, BLOG, and we will have all the information there underneath this podcast. So awesome. Excellent. And I do have one last question for you. So how did you know, at what point in your life did you know that you were that special kind of crazy enough to think that you could become a successful entrepreneur?
I think I was 5. Yeah. Entrepreneurship started young for me. Like I got I won't call it a lecture, but maybe it was a lecture. I don't know. A serious talk from my dad at age 5 about the importance of basically saving money and taking care of myself, and it's true. His story was that he was one of 11. They were super poor. His dad had promised if they worked on the ranch and did all this stuff, he'd pay his way to school. When time came and he couldn't. So I think my dad had this deep-seated fear with his own children that, he never wanted them thinking he was going to pay their way. So at age 5, I started saving every cent and asking for odd jobs. And by first grade, I think I had a paper route. By, age 8 or 9, I had bought my first car, as an investment. Wow. Yeah. So I was an early saver, and then I flipped a series.
A real car.
Like a real car.
Dude, I bought my first set of what are those called? Hot Wheels.
Yeah.
Slightly behind you.
No, but I only had at the time $300, right? So turns out you can buy a car with $300, and this would have been in the 80s. So my dad drives up this old car. I want to say it was an old Pontiac Sunbird or something, but it was terrible. It was green and ugly and so dirty, and it had permatilt seats, and I was devastated. I bawled my little eyes out because I just thought it was the worst car ever. But he gave me this little lecture and we'll clean it up and you can make a couple $100, basically double your money, right? As a 8 or 9-year-old, I was like, okay, I get this. I scrubbed that darn thing with a toothbrush and soap, every nook and cranny, the inside of it, all weekend. It took me an entire weekend, and sure enough, the next week we turned around and sold it for $700.
Nice.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So it started young. It started young for me, and my dad was entrepreneurial, so he really passed along kind of that mindset. And so yeah, from there it was just another long series of crazy stories about things that I've done, but
I am super jealous. When I went in and went entrepreneurial, I'm thinking, oh my God, like, did every entrepreneur on the planet grow up in an entrepreneurial family so that they were discussing this stuff at the table? And I was never discussing this stuff at the table, and I missed out, and all I know how to do is a job, and I'm terrible at it, and I'm way too crazy. My sister even fired me. Like, that's how I am so not employable. I make a great contractor.
yes, so many people are in that same boat. It really is. There's a mindset, I think, for people that are true entrepreneurs. And I think there's various pathways in, right? I don't think there's a one size all fits path into entrepreneurship, but I think many people, I mean, the desire, like I would ask you, what was your big reason why? Why did you make that choice around going into entrepreneurship? Because 90% of the population doesn't make that choice.
Oh yeah, when I was 23, I was up in Nunavut in the Northwest Territories. It's kind of funny. So I will do a show on that because I think that would be a good one.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, gonna do a show on my experience because so at 23, my partner at the time said, I need you obviously are not meant to be a dental assistant, so why don't we start up a company? And I went, oh, what are we going to do? And he's like, well, there's this electronics store and we can do the bed and breakfast. I'm like, oh yes, we can do a tanning salon and this would be awesome. So I didn't start with one business. I started with 3 businesses. I go to the BDC because he made me go to the BDC to set up the loans and stuff. And the poor guy's going, okay, so what do you see as your
main,
your foresight? No, like the money that you're going to make in the next year. This is the second time today I forgot this word.
That's right.
Your
like your projected income or
projected income. Yeah. I keep thinking it's 4, but it's not. It's projected income. And I'm like, well, how do I know? I've never run an electronics store before. I've never done anything in business before. How would I know that? And he goes, well, you just kind of figure out how much you're going to sell and how do I know how much I'm going to sell? And finally it's like, okay, so you want me to make up a bunch of numbers that look good? Yeah, basically.
Totally.
I was like, from there on in, I was like, I am hooked. I can
like this works. I can do. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
My
like, I got this.
Entrepreneurial world was so messed up, but
oh my gosh, so hilarious. That's really funny. Yeah. No.
Yes, you'd have cringed at the amount of lack of legal that went into place. My poor entrepreneurial thing, but everybody got paid in the end, so it's all good. Oh, anyway. Hilarious. So you are awesome. Any last words for our peeps?
No, just, rock on with your bad selves. Entrepreneurs are a really like a rare breed of people. And I just love them so much because I feel like it takes so much courage to really step out into the world and say, like, here's what I'm going to do, and to work your tail end off to do it. And that's often what it takes. But like the quote that I love is entrepreneurs are the rare breed who, avoid the 40-hour work week by working 80 hours a week, something like that. I so relate
freedom at all
costs. Totally. But I have a big heart for the amount of effort that it takes to create something and stick to that path. So, I just want to give a big kudos to everybody who's on that path.
Nice. Yes, we have a soft spot for you.
Yes, we do. All right. Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Heather. This is Michelle Nedelec. Thank you for being with us. If you have any ideas for our show or you'd like to be a guest on the show, please email me at michelle@awarenessstrategies.com or connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks, Heather.
Woohoo. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to our show. I am all about being a resource center for entrepreneurs to give them the information and the support they need to make it in business. As such, I have Taking Your Business Digital Q&A every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Mountain. To register for that, go to awarenessstrategies.com/digital. That's DIGITAL. I look forward to meeting you and actually finding out how you are. So see you on the flip side.